something where I'm like, God, it's just never really picked up since those magazines. I wonder what they said.
I am joined on the Europe Drum Show official podcast by the legend that is Mr. Mike Johnston. Yeah.
Oh,
How are you?
dude. A lot better that if you say legend and then you miss the T in my last name, I'm like, well, probably not much of a legend if you don't know my last name. But you said Johnston like it was perfect. Thank you for getting the T.
Dude, I have done my homework, and despite severe dyslexia, I've managed to pronounce it correctly. So we're on for a good chat.
You got the T.
For those of you that have been essentially living under a rock for the last couple of decades, Mike Johnston has done so much in the world of drums, but he will be gracing the main stage and performing at the Europe Drum Show in March 2025 at 12:45 p.m. on Sunday, the 30th of March. And if that's not enough Mike Johnston for you, Mike has also got his own educator room taking place over the whole weekend, hosting 8 different drummers on both the Saturday and the Sunday, 29th and 30th of March, offering visitors a unique opportunity to learn from the very best in the industry. There is so much, Mike, to talk
Is
about.
there? It feels like there's nothing left to say. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We'll see you in March. I think you nailed it.
I was wondering if it would be okay with you if you and I could break the ice with a little game called This or That, where basically, Mike, you just have to pick which one of the two things you prefer, and there are 5 questions in total, and you don't have to give an explanation.
Bring it on.
Okay. Which has got the most iconic drum intro? We Will Rock You by Queen or Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin?
Oh, We Will Rock You by Queen.
Okay. Apple or Spotify?
Spotify, recently.
Okay. Do you prefer to stream your music or do you like listening on vinyl? Streaming or physical?
Stream.
Okay. Do you prefer playing an indoor venue or to a festival crowd?
Dude, I don't even know why they have shows outside. Do you know how tough it is? Drums just sound like buttered ass outside. It is so not fun. And you have to smile like, this is amazing. And you're like, I can't hear anything. My drums feel like cardboard. I've played Reading, or not Reading, yeah, maybe before it was Reading at Leeds, it was just Reading Fest, I think.
Yes.
And it's like, great, 100,000 people. I know I should be happy, but I'm telling you, like, my Tom, something's wrong here. And then you go play like to 50 people in a cafe and you're like, stoosh, guitar. And I'm like, my drums sound amazing. What is this, a Catalina? Let's go. So yeah, indoors. Let's go.
Okay. And the last one, the world before the internet or the world as it is today? Which one do you prefer?
Oh, yeah, that's a loaded question. I'm fortunate enough, you probably are as well, to live in both eras. So I do know both. I do remember them both. It's really hard to not be happy with the evening of the playing field that the internet has given everyone. And I do love meeting people from the smallest towns in the smallest countries that are now crushing it because they had an opportunity to share their thing with the entire world.
Yes.
So just for that reason alone, I'll go with that.
Okay. We said a moment ago that you've done so much throughout your career. You've traveled the world, you've toured with bands, you've lived a drummer's dream. But what do you think so far in your career has been the biggest Spinal Tap moment?
Oh, Spinal Tap moment being that it was like weird and what the hell going on?
It could be that you got lost backstage. It might have been that you didn't have the right size bread on your rider.
Which is I mean, how could you mess that up? I sent you the inches. I sent you the whatever you guys use, the millimeters. I sent the centimeters. I said 2 yards, 4 kilometers. No, I think the most, I don't know your measurement. Is that a lot of bread?
That's like a mile.
It's a mile of bread. Yeah, I'm into carbs. I don't do that high protein thing. I'm into carbs. So I would say the most Spinal Tap moment was probably We were opening for Primus in a little town in California called Petaluma. And this is before we got signed. And so opening for Primus was a really big deal. And it was in their hometown type vibe. Anyways, we're playing this show and it wasn't massive. It was maybe, I don't know, 500 people total. It was a theater. And there was a curtain, like a theater curtain, and we were backed up because we were backline. So we were set up behind, or was that right? I don't remember. But anyways, we were backed up to the curtain. And I was doing this like windmill jobby to make it look cool when I played. And my stick caught the bottom of the curtain, and it's like a giant theater curtain. And I pulled it up over my head and over my entire drum set, and I was shirtless and sweaty, and it was like this weird fishnet vibe. And it basically was like somebody just threw like a cargo net on me. It was like, capture the drummer. And I was like, oh, and then I went like kind of head first into the snare mic, and you can hear me like through the PA going, oh, oh, Lord love a duck. Oh, mother, son of a. And I'm like, get off me, man. And I like finally get this curtain off me, and then my whole band is turned around. They're like, you good, dude? And I was like, I I literally got attacked by like a Scooby-Doo net. Like somebody tried to capture me like I was in Jurassic Park. I don't know what happened. So anyways, that was one of those moments where I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that again.
I'm so glad you shared that story. That was absolutely amazing, and you've definitely succeeded in bringing your energy directly to the Europe Drum Show official podcast.
Can't wait.
You're you're the only drummer in history to be featured on the cover of four major drum magazines. My understanding. You're the only drum instructor to be featured on the cover of Modern Drummer, Drum, Rhythm, and Drummer UK. How
Drum
does that?
instructor, yes. When you said drummer, I was like, nah, I'm pretty sure
No,
Neil Peart got the honors. Pretty sure Travis Barker made the cut.
Well, again, my dyslexia just had a momentary post-apocalyptic rave. Drum instructor, yes, you're the
Yes.
only drum instructor in history to be featured on the front of of four drum magazines.
Yeah.
How does that feel for you? That's an amazing accomplishment. All jokes aside.
Yeah. No, it was incredible. I think now that I look back at it though, it definitely had much less to do with me and more to do with the industry recognizing where we might be headed and people being like, okay, this thing that was kind of like a joke, or maybe we just didn't take it seriously, this internet thing, or even being able to teach on the internet and through a device like a computer. All of a sudden, I think especially the editorial industry was way ahead of the drum industry. The drum industry or music industry in general, as far as instruments, is always just kind of like, well, we've done it this way for 100 years, so let's not rush to judgment. Where the editorial industry is more plugged into tech and to the, what's happening in the world. And I think they just kind of thought like, man, this guy's on to something.
Hmm.
When I started teaching full time online, like no more private lessons, just all I'm doing is teaching on the internet. I've made a business out of it. And it's working and it's succeeding. And so to me, it was more like they just made me the poster child of here's what's coming. I've honestly never read any of the articles to this date. I don't know what they said. I don't know if they're interview style.
Could have been
It's
really bad. You might have been on the front cover for really bad reasons.
it could be something where I'm like, God, it's just never really picked up since those magazines. I wonder what they said. I mean, I could obviously see the cover, and so if it says something like, "The drum world has a new drum hero," I'm like, oh, that's okay. That's going one step too far. Let's leave that to the Neil Pearts and the Travis Barkers of the world. And then if it said, "The drum industry has never seen anything this bad," I'd be like, that's another step too far the other way. Let's assume that it's all somewhere in the middle of like, hey, the kid's trying. But it was very cool. And I got to say, back to mentioning what you and I have kind of straddled as far as our age and like what we've seen pre-internet taking off and post and pre-social media, post-social media. It was very nice to be on the cover of those magazines
Hmm.
at a time where magazines were still a thing.
Yes.
There was a time where some of my dear friends got their chance to be on a cover of a magazine, and I was like, oh man, I wish you would have had this 2 years ago, because it would have meant so much more because it was a time where the
Hmm.
only way people would have known you is this thing that shows up in their mailbox. And they,
Yes.
that was how we were taught about new players, is like you go through these pages and you're like, well, I've never seen that person before, but
Hmm.
he or she is clearly sponsored by Pearl, and Pearl has taken a full page ad out on them. So Pearl is telling me I need to pay attention to this person. And then you
Hmm.
start doing your research and finding out what albums they're on. And that was a really exciting way to learn about people. And I feel like, not to go down a rabbit hole, but sometimes I feel like there's everything I said that was good about the internet, being that we can now share ourselves with the entire world.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's too many, and I need someone else to kind of tell me like, okay, out of the millions of drummers that I'm supposed to follow and supposed to know about, can you give me like 10? You got a top 10 for me? Because I can't take on that much information. I can't take on that
Hmm.
many new influences. So I do love when I find like that one drummer where I'm like, okay, I'm moving you into my influence pile, and I can take on like
Wow.
two or one or two a year. So when I find that one person where I'm like, let's go, this is pretty cool, then it's awesome. So
So you're a drumming instructor that has inspired so many. Who would you say are at the top two of that specific pile of influences for you?
yeah, so it's tough because we have the um, pre-professional influences where you're a kid and this person just makes you want to play, and you're not analyzing, are they
Hmm.
the best?
Hmm.
I've never even questioned Mike Borden from Faith No More. It's just like, well, I don't know what to tell you. He got me on the drum set for many years in a row because I heard him play and I wanted to play. Or Will Calhoun from Living Color. Obviously, growing up in Sacramento, I had Abe Cunningham from the Deftones, Chris Robine from
Yes.
Far, Dave Buckner from Papa Roach. So even just my friends inspired me. As far as now, it's really like I would never tell the person this, but it's kind of like, man, if you, after I've seen almost every great drummer in the world and I've done lots of drum festivals, I've been very fortunate to be next to like, oh, that's Dennis Chambers warming up, or on
Hmm.
next after me is Dave frickin' Weckl. This is insane. So it's pretty hard to crack the like, you're, I'm obsessed over your drumming. So man, it's tough. I would say now, oh God, I hope he doesn't listen to this, but Carter McLean, and I only say that because we're really good friends, and I would hate for him to know that I really like his drumming. Then I can't really make fun of him anymore. So uh, I hope Carter's not listening, but Carter McLean is still one of those people that every time I see him play, I just feel like, I guess it's what you would hope from an influence. I feel like I could be better. I'm like, man, I need to focus more on my clarity, more on my control, on my sound. And then I would say Madden Class. Madden Class is a female drummer from the U.S. that she doesn't do a lot of educational stuff. So what I love about that is there's no like I don't get any insight on her secrets. Like she just exists as this
Hmm.
complete badass on the drums. But I don't know how that happened. I don't know if she took lessons. I don't know if she studied somewhere. I don't know her approach. I just all I can see is the art, and I think especially doing what I do for a living, it's really neat to not know everything and just to be like,
Yes.
all that's there is the art. I got to figure it out for myself, and I love that.
Yes. That's amazing. And they were really well considered answers and approaches, so that was awesome. I enjoyed that a lot. Um, you're no stranger to the UK drum show. You've had two really successful years with us. How does it feel for you now being approached to not only do your own workshops throughout the weekend over in Germany in March 25, but also, Mike, to play the main stage of the Europe drum show? Like, how does that feel?
It's so it's so incredible that after all this time, a decade of doing every drum festival in the world that I can think of, it still is one of those things where I'm like running home like, babe, I'm playing the main stage. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just the term the main stage. I'm sure if they called it like Tom's stage, it wouldn't feel the same. Like if I was just on Tom's stage. But
I'm going
the
to get them to
main
rename it.
up next on Tom's stage, we've got Mark Johnson. Oh, it's Mike Johnston. Don't worry, that's fine. Ollie got it right, but you didn't. All good. Um, but yeah, so it is something that I don't take lightly whatsoever. And even having the education room, I keep asking the people that promote the thing, just call it the education room. Don't call it the Mike Johnston education room. It feels weird if my name's in there. And they're like, okay. And then big giant Instagram posters like the Mike Johnston education room. I'm like, nah, let's just call it the education room. So it, but it, both of them are honors. But to be totally honest, they are very separate. The education room is where you go to see main stage artists, but without the pressure of the main stage. It's not a performance, it's a hang. It's like, well, I'm going to play a little bit and we'll open it up for some questions. But this is, I would say, the education room is more about the attendees than it is the artist. It's the attendees'
Hmm.
chance to say, look, while you're on the main stage, I'm not going to raise my hand and ask you why you play Coded Heads, but in this room, I feel comfortable asking you that. So it's giving
Yes.
them full access to be like, I was too embarrassed to ask this in that giant room with that giant stage, but in
Hmm.
this environment, I feel okay asking you like this. And it's also a chance where I could say, if somebody asked me a drum set question about their drumming, I could say, well, just come up here and just show me what you're talking about. And I don't think they would do that on the main stage. They'd be scared out of
Hmm.
their minds, but they might do it in the education room and be like, look, this is a
Well,
very
it's a
safe
safe
environment.
space. Yes.
100%. So that's the education room. But and in that world, man, it is the closest I'll ever get to feeling cocky. Like I feel like, well, this is what I do. I got this.
Yes.
And then as soon as somebody's like, all right, you're on Tom's stage in 30 minutes, I'm literally like, oh, do we have to? Okay. Like that's and I'm like, so who's on before me? They're like, all right, we've got let's see, Benny Greb goes on at 12:30. Then after you, I believe it's Chad Smith. And you're like, oh, goodness gracious. Are you like, how am I supposed to just live up to that? So there are a lot of nerves that go into a main stage performance, also because it is a performance. So you do have to play a lot more, and you're not going to get that interaction from the crowd that I'm used to. Also, the country is going to, shift how the vibe is. So when you do a clinic in Japan or England or Germany, they're very different as far as how the audiences approach a
Right.
performer. There's so much different levels of respect. Like one country or one group of people can feel that the way to respect it is to be a part of it and to be engaged. Where another country and another group of people can say, well, the way to respect it is to be quiet and not engage and give you our full attention. Well, those
Hmm.
are two very different performances. So
Hmm.
it's up to me to come out of the gates, and in the first moment, I need to find out, are we willing to have fun? So there might be a light joke that just is just for me to check the temperature. And if there's very little laughter and just it's very quiet, it's like, cool, now I know we can't go there. So
Hmm.
literally within the first 5 minutes of my performance, I'll probably change my performance 6 times based off
Wow.
of what I'm feeling. So then I'll say something kind of deep, and I'll check everyone's eyes. And if their eyes are glazed over, I know, okay, deep is not where we're going today. Or if they all lean forward a little bit, I'm like, oh, we're ready to get deep and to talk
Hmm.
about this instrument that we all love, but we're all frustrated by. And so it's like, can I connect with them on an emotional level? If not, then I might move on to tech. And so it's like, all right, guys, we are going to be talking a lot about linear drumming and the ability to speak between hands and feet. And then if
Hmm.
they light up, I go, oh, it's a tech audience, like technical
Hmm.
audience. Okay, cool. We'll go. And I love all those different directions, but I can't even pick a path until I've experienced the audience. And this is our first time doing this in Germany, so I don't know what the audience will be like.
I think you're going to be welcomed with open arms on that main stage. I've seen your drumming, I've seen your abilities, I've seen what you can do. I've heard your playing, I've been mesmerized by it. And I
Thanks, buddy.
think that everyone's just going to be blown away. Just give me
Thanks, man.
£10 for that compliment straight after this.
Absolutely.
I'll
I
give you
don't
my
know.
invoice
Is that a
details.
mile of bread? Is that 1 mile of bread? I
I
just need
feel
to
like
know.
I'm eating. um, as an instructor, you've obviously you've taught so many people over the years. Do you think, and this probably sounds like a really stupid question, but a lot of drummers now are coming forward publicly and saying, I never learnt to sight read. I'm doing
Right.
everything from feel. From your perspective, I imagine sight reading is absolutely super important. Do you think it matters if people can or can't sight read? And would you recommend doing that?
No, it doesn't even weigh on my mind in the slightest. Like the only reason you would need to know how to read is so that I can pass information off to you in that regard. So If you can read, I can then just send you sheet. If you said, "What's this groove?" I can just send you sheet music, and we're done. And you got it, and we're good to go. So that's great, and that's a shorthand for learning. But somebody else might say, like, "Well, I can't read." No problem at all. I'm going to film it for you real quick. I'll play it at 50 BPM, 80 BPM, and then the goal tempo of 120 BPM, and you can learn it by ear. If they say like, I don't really learn by ear, but I learn by watching, then I would ask them, okay, between overhead camera, front angle, and side angle, what's going to be the best way for you to visualize this and
Hmm.
put it into? So I don't care about any of that stuff. All I care about is you want to learn this thing, and it is my job to crack the code of how to get that information to you in an easy to digest way. And whatever that is for you, that's not up to me. And man, I can't tell you how frustrated I get with teachers that say like, "Well, this is the way to do it." And I'm like, "Well, Tom, I know you have your own stage, but it's the truth is that's the way you did it and that's the way you learned it, but not everybody is you." So to me, every single student is is a choose your own adventure book where I just go, okay, well, if we're going to go down that path, then let's go down that path together. Um, and then I also want them to know if for any reason you want to learn to read, I got your back and we can do that. And that's why on my website where I'm not able to have a one-on-one lesson because there's thousands of students, that's why we have all those options. So you're watching the video, you're hearing me play. Underneath the video is the sheet music, and the sheet music is also playable. So you can just press the button and not
Wow.
read it and just listen to it, and you can slow
Hmm.
the tempo down and speed it up. So it's kind of like, look, however you learn, I'm good with it. I don't really care about that.
Amazing.
All I care about is that you have this desire to do this thing, and I know that thing. So to me, that's the joy of education and the joy of teaching is like, well, I have the answer to your question, but it's not as simple as giving you the answer. I have to code the answer to make sense for your brain. And
Yes.
how can I do that? And I love that process. It's the best.
That's amazing. Mike, thank you for joining me on the first ever episode of the Europe Drum Show official podcast. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. You've been engaging, insightful, but most importantly, hilarious, which I think most drummers are natural extroverts, aren't they? And you continue
100%.
to fly that flag. Mike will be, of course, at the Europe Drum Show all weekend, but he will be performing at 12:45 p.m. On Sunday, the 30th of March, and we cannot wait to see what you bring to the table. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you, my friend.